Good morning, and thank you for attending a community conversation hosted by United Way of Greater Greensboro. For those of you I have not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Michelle Clark, and I humbly serve as the president and CEO of the United Way. And today's conversation is one that I think is important given this moment in time. And in its importance, I'm going to ask all of us to pause for a moment to reflect, because I think reflection is really important as you begin any meaningful conversation, especially given the environment that we are in, be it COVID-19 or be it the unrest that exists in many communities as a result of the killing of George Floyd. So let us pause. And in our pausing, there are a couple of things that we want to do today. And one of them is I really want to be sure that we set some context around what I and the United Way are not experts in. And here's what we're not experts in, and we are not going to purport to be experts in, and that is we are not experts in race, racism, and tearing down or dismantling, if you will, structural racism. But what we are experts in is clearing the path for a conversation and meaningful, well-intended actions at the community level. I am an expert at how I feel, and I am an expert on how I feel as a Black woman in America today. I am also a student, and I would say that my United Way colleagues are students in learning from you, not only today, but always. I would also call out an organization called Racial Equity Institute, which is based right here in Greensboro. And it is a resource and training organization that I use organizationally and I recommend. We, the United Way, are on a journey to understand and address social issues that include race, racism, and inequity. And so as such, let us get started with our conversation. And our conversation is going to be approximately 1 hour. And what we know is that there are long-term structural change that is an imperative that happens in America. But so is immediate action. So today we want to identify some specific actions that we can take with a sense of immediacy to address the well-being of our community. We're going to break this call into two sections. The first is going to be dialogue and ideas. We want you to be heard. We will ask you to raise your hand in Zoom, and we will unmute you so that we can have dialogue on ideas. And then part two is going to be, what is the next right action? In a 1,000-mile journey, it's one step at a time. And it's not necessarily being absolute about the end game, but it is about what is the right next step right now. And as we think about that, here's what we all know. The American dream is broken for some. And COVID-19 highlighted it, and the killing of George Floyd really brought it to the forefront of our nation and the globalness of both these events. And what this chart shows is that in the red section, which is the American Southeast corridor, that the economic mobility of a child who is born to a parent who lives in the bottom fifth of the economic, a child who is born to a parent in the bottom fifth of the earning scale in our country, some of those children have a 0% chance of leaving that status and moving to the top 10, the top quartile or quintile. In America, we are saying if you are born in the Southeast, you have zero economic mobility. And the question is why? And I think that we all know that racism and inequity and structural barriers are causing that to happen, especially in the Southeast. So what we want to do to lead this conversation today is we want to talk about this idea and this fact that racism leads to economic disparities, which are manifesting every day in low wages, food deserts, housing shortages, employment barriers, technology shortage, mass incarceration, healthcare that is not equal, declining education investments in our public schools, policing, inequity in financial services, and yes, poverty. And so this is not an exhaustive list, but this is a list to get us started in a dialogue. I am going to turn our meeting over to a facilitator. Her name is Rosa Sadater, and she is the president of Martellus Group. And she is going to spend some time with us talking about and facilitating a discussion on behalf of Greensboro, North Carolina, hosted by the United Way of Greater Greensboro. So Rosa, if you can bump me and you can take over and unmute.
Okay. I can't unmute me. I need somebody to help.
You're
there
unmuted.
You go. I'm unmuted. And let me see if I can change the driving of the screen. Perfect. So I am here to help facilitate the dialogue. My role is purely to try and get as many ideas on the table. There are a lot of people on this call, so I do realize that we're not going to get to everybody. I think it's important for everyone to be heard. So we're going to put up my email at the end of the call today. If your idea wasn't heard, please feel free to email me because we were going to be sending out a summary by Monday. So please email me that. The other thing I would say is, as you said, if you want to express an idea during the dialogue, please raise your hand. And you will be unmuted. We're going to be leveraging polling technology during the brainstorm to vote on the top ideas, and we'll let you know how to do that when we get there. And just be mindful that we have now a couple hundred people on the call, so time, kindness, so that as many people as possible can hear the voices heard, I would really appreciate. And I'm almost going to try to work this as a little bit of a whiteboard, so you guys will see me typing as we go along, as you speak, so that you can see how your ideas are manifesting and sort of the collective ideas that we're putting together. I wanted to go back before we start and open it up to comments to one section, the last page that Michelle talked about. Clearly, there are both long-term opportunities and immediate actions that we can take along all three levels of this pyramid. And that would be, so there is many discussions that we will continue to have in the future about all three levels. But today we want to focus on the third level. And as Michelle said, what are the next right actions that we can take against the things that are manifesting as a result of economic disparities and racism? Just to start the conversation going, and I will turn it over to you in a second to start raising your hand. Just as a starting point, we said, look, we believe there are at least 4 major areas we'd like to brainstorm around. Health and wellness is one, education is another, employment is another, housing is another, and perhaps there may be an additional pillar that one of you guys wants to add. Within each of those pillars, there are specific areas that we might want to focus on. So access to medical care, to care in health and wellness, for example, food deserts in Guilford County under health and wellness, for example. So what we want to do over the next 20 minutes or so, and I'll keep my eye on the time, I promise, is have a conversation about this. Are there additional big areas that we want to add to the list? So do we want to fill in that other all the way on the right? Are there additional areas that we want to put under each of the pillars? So in health and wellness, we want to consider mental health. I'm making things up, and you might want to put that there. And then if you have a point of view on something that's already here, they were just there to motivate discussion, either because you think it's important or you want to amplify it a little bit, welcome to have those thoughts too. And what we'll do is try to work this out and flesh this out together in 20 minutes, and then we'll step back and think about what might be the 3 most important ones. So if that makes sense, I would say if there's any questions, please ask me, but that would be silly because you are all muted. But if anybody has a point of view on any of the things that you're seeing in front of you right now, things that are missing in any of the major pillars or any of the major pillars that we want to add, I would love to hear your perspective. And do that by raising your hand, and you will be unmuted.
Yeah. Rosa, we also have some people who are writing in the text. And so in the chat, I'm going to tell you safety and criminal justice.
All right, I am going to, yep.
We also have mentoring. Someone has suggested economic opportunity as its own category, which we can do, but we'll do after this potentially, and because we have items that are economic opportunity, and maybe we can put that under there.
And then we'll break them out as we go along. Other than criminal justice, you said there was another category, Michelle?
It wasn't a category, it was just an idea: criminal justice, mentoring, and safety. So criminal justice and safety may be able to go together.
Got it.
Your health and wellness, violence is a social determinant factor. So I would say for community violence prevention, include police violence training or something like that. That is also a health and wellness issue or health issue.
So 2 things: community violence prevention, and then is police violence. Your third point about the police, would that be in health and wellness or in criminal justice safety? I mean, we'll fix up the categories later, but want to make sure I capture your point.
Yes, I would say that violence is a social determinant factor, health factor. So in that community violence prevention, health facilities such as I work for CONE are, instituting, okay, what does police violence training look like and things of that sort. So it's a more holistic. Some people don't look at domestic violence per se or any type of community violence as a health risk, but it is.
Got it.
Right. We also have in the chat room Medicaid expansion.
Yes.
So I'm unmuted. Does that mean it's my time?
You can talk, yes. You are unmuted.
So I noticed that United Way is the convener of My Brother's Keeper in Greensboro. And I know that there were some prescriptives that we needed to get behind with our local officials to implement some of the reforms in the criminal justice and policing. So I wanted to know if is there a document or is there something that y'all can provide. So if I wanted to, I've already started, people have been asking me, what can I do? And I've been telling them we need to be holding our local officials accountable. And so if there's something that says these are the things that we want that can be sent out, or these are the things, that actions that we want you to take, I think that would be helpful.
And it's that particularly in the criminal justice area. So I'm writing this down and hopefully.
Yeah,
Okay,
That's particularly, that was particularly based on the Obama administration's work on reforms in policing and
Right.
criminal justice.
And we have access to that, and we have some My Brother's Keeper information. So put MBK on there. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional suggestions?
Yeah, behavioral health under health and wellness, to just call that out.
So talk more. What does that mean? Just so.
In mental health and mental wellness.
Okay.
Behavioral health.
You guys can see how slow I type. Go ahead.
I see that you have equitable financial services and funding, but under housing, it might also be helpful to move something with financial literacy there, or financial planning for housing would be helpful under the housing component.
Got it.
Yeah, that makes sense, Karen. Thank you for that. Someone has asked that under coaching, under mentoring, can we add coaching?
And is it appropriate to put that in education or someplace else? That was my first. Yeah, why not, right? Okay.
Yeah. And then the other is language barriers need to be called out. And that is for English as a second language, as well as for our deaf and hard of hearing community was put up here.
Anything else?
Yeah, so I would add a focus under education, not only preschool, but access to childcare that's affordable, accessible, educational, gives the children that access, but also the parents that access, so that they can go to school or work or whatever they need to do.
Yep. We've got a lot to do. Let's get them all on the list. Anything else, folks?
I'm just, team, if you're, a bunch of us are scrolling, so unmute if you're scrolling. And then under education, cultural sensitivity. And what I want to say, we're seeing a lot of comments on training, bias, racial training. We agree. I think that's going to be foundational to all of this. So I just want to put an overarching on this. In education, know your state and constitutional rights. I do think there's an attorney on the line who teaches street law, and I'm going to call him out because he really, Steve Freeland at Elon University is nationally known for making sure we all understand our state and constitutional rights. And we don't understand our rights, and a number of negative things happen to us because we don't know our rights.
And those are so foundational, Michelle, that I just put them in we'll figure out how to do it in the summary, but I put them at the top of the education bucket.
Yes, yes. The distinction between intervention, yes. So there are some foundational themes that are coming out. So I want everybody to know that you're not typing in vain. All of your remarks are going to be saved.
Hi, this is.
Go ahead. Somebody got unmuted. Go ahead, Tammy.
Yes, sorry. Thank you. I'm just really excited that the last column, criminal justice and safety, if we put that over into the health and wellness, some part of it, I just wonder if we could look at the overall resilience reform. And we can take that in many different avenues into the coaching and mentoring, because even the person who comes in who's physically abused in their home, whether it be a husband, wife, whether it be a race, whatever, it can really take that out of context, and we could really just work on reforming and giving that resilience and that coaching to that person.
So let me make sure I understand what you said. So you want to sort of make criminal justice and safety a subset of health and wellness? Is that? I just want to make sure I capture what you're saying properly.
I'm proposing that we look at it as a column of resilience and reform. So we're really trying to give that a column to say where can people go for that to rebuild when they've lost. So, and that probably is a subset of like the housing and employment, but just having a place for them to go to know, where do I go to get all these resources? And the woman who is abused or man who is abused, where can they go? The person who has suffered from any type of racial issue that's going on, any type of violence, they know where to go. So it's giving them that resilience, building them back up and reforming them. So it's just a column that I thought it's a really positive column.
Yep. And it's because my 20-year-old isn't here to give me tech advice. I'm just noting that it's going to be a different column, but it's the additional pillar or the additional column is going to be resilience and reform. And it's going to be resilience and reentry after.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
After exposure, or however you want to term it, but I just feel that that gets me excited.
You know what? I am going to say it the hard way: after tragedy.
There you go.
Because that's what it is. Okay.
And then also under employment, Katie Glaser has said, put childcare there also, because that is a barrier to employment. And I think we all know that. Yeah. And I'm just going through the written comments, and if you get your hand raised and unmuted, please go ahead. But we've got 86 written comments. So homelessness also under housing, let's go ahead and call out homelessness.
Anything else, folks? If you have one that, even if you put it in the chat, if you don't see it here and you're like, I really want to get that on there, raise your hand.
Can we add something under employment and economic opportunity about employing protocols in workplaces to call out discrimination and racism, sexism, just so there's a formal process?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, this is Catherine Sevier. I would like to see us also add the issue of caregiving on here, because we have 1.3 million caregivers in the state who are taking care of elderly parents, disabled, others, friends and neighbors who are unpaid. And caregiving puts us in a situation where we can't hold jobs because of the caregiving responsibilities that we have with our families.
Bye, Mom.
Thank you.
Yep, got it. Anything else? Just a few more minutes. Again, if you have something on your chat, just raise your hand and we'll put it on because the next step here is going to be that I'm going to number these so they don't all have the same number. And then we're going to vote on our top 3. Again, not a final stake in the ground, but so that we leave and we're going to vote on our top 3 and talk about what we can do against them, so that we leave with the beginning of an action plan. Any additional thoughts?
Was there space? This public transportation has popped up a couple of times. And for all of those who are, we got a lot of internet and connectivity. We try to capture that in a section already, and I think what happens is when we start to unpack some of these topics, that is when the real robust work happens.
Right. And many of these issues, like I just put access to transportation under employment and economic opportunity, but we could have put it under education. We could have put it under housing. Many of these things impact a number of issues. So again, we'll be voting at the individual level. And then the internet and connectivity is under education. Again, it could go anywhere.
I also saw voting. So I don't know if it's reform, yeah, so I'm seeing a lot around voting, so I'm not sure where that goes.
Me either,
Yeah, maybe it does.
but I'm just putting it because voter suppression is, okay.
Yeah, voter suppression is an issue here.
Yeah, access to voting.
Yeah.
Because they're transportation, yep. We'll give it a number 2. We'll figure out how to reformulate the pillars and stuff, but as long as we're getting all the ideas on the table, that's all that matters.
Tracy Catlett, go ahead, you're unmuted.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah. Hi. I added summer access in terms of education, particularly in the preschool and elementary years, sort of like compound interest, that academic gap widens within every year exponentially. The kids don't have access to books, experiential field trips, outdoor education, things in their home that allow the learning to continue even if they're not in a program. I think that's critical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can someone unmute Tom Sloan for me?
Oh, I think that's Tom Cone.
Oh, Tom Cone. Right? Okay, thank you.
Hi, it flew by, I think, on the chat, but I'm not sure where this fits in. But access appears on almost every column, if not every column that we've talked about. And I think that brings up something that's not exactly on this list, and I'm not sure where it would fit or if it's kind of a meta issue, but that is the culture of the community. It's not just access to this, or we'll work on individual access to housing, access to healthcare. It's changing people's minds and understanding to understand what access is, why it's a problem currently, why it needs to be fixed, and how to go about it.
So Tom, I am going to capture that under this, what we call foundational, because it's broader than training. So we have cultural sensitivity, but also it doesn't really fit in the education bucket. We're going to have it as a foundational thing underlying everything, but meaning of access, cultural sensitivity, meaning of access. What other words might make sense there, Tom?
I'd have to go to my thesaurus.
No, but that's okay. As long as we capture are we capturing your idea properly? That's the important thing.
I think so. And I sent a lengthy chat, which you don't need to read now, but that sort of addresses a little bit of that.
Okay, that's going to be helpful.
Any other additions before we get ready to vote?
Yeah. Can someone unmute Tom Sloan also, please?
We've got a couple people. I'm trying to get through them as fast as I can. We have someone that's unmuted now, so go ahead.
Yes. Hello?
Yes.
My name is Sadiga. I want to add under education, access to interpreters and translation for parents who don't speak English.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything
Kelly,
else?
you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Kelly Graves. I actually want to second Tom's Cone's comment. I actually was going to make a comment similar, and then also just to share that I think separate from the ideas that we have listed here, I agree that there needs to be like a culture shift. And I think about some sort of community education or culture campaign that would hit multiple pockets of this, so that people would, people that may not be directly recipients of trainings in law enforcement or schools or housing pockets, that we could start to look at a culture shift, and that could be through kind of like a community-wide campaign that addresses a couple key messages that we're trying to push. Even things like pausing before, calling law enforcement, really questioning ourselves before we act, reflecting on our own beliefs before we act. And I don't know what it could be, but I do think that there's another layer or a macro layer that that we should hit.
Mm-hmm. So so you see that as, I've really been expanding on number 6 in the chart that you guys have in front of you. When we just pretend that's just gonna be along the bottom, sort of as foundational culture shift training with many, many elements to it. It just exceeds my capabilities to do that live, but for sure, I got the point loud and clear. Anything else? How many more people do we need to take before we go to the voting, folks who are helping run this meeting?
Lauren, you've got 4 raised hands.
We've got a couple of raised hands. Yep.
Go ahead.
Someone with the username KBill7, you are unmuted, so go ahead, please.
Okay, quick point. As important as it is to understand street law, I'd like to flip that and also try to teach the ethical imperative of teaching respect for civil obedience and rule of law. If we really want to get buy-in across the community, we need to really stress that side of the issue.
Respect for rule of law and civic.
Yes, civil obedience.
Got it.
Shemaya, go ahead.
Hello. So I wanted to just comment that banning the box on employment applications is very important and necessary, certainly at the city of Greensboro, where I am HR director, something we did several years ago, and it has really made a huge difference in our ability to attract and retain qualified individuals. But ban the box also should, I feel, apply to housing applications as well, because far too often a prior criminal conviction will keep a prospective tenant from being able to find safe and affordable housing. So I think, and it could also potentially apply to the foundational issue of culture, in the sense that how do we view and perceive people who have prior criminal convictions? Do we view them as a threat, or do we view them as someone who has made a mistake, served justice, and are now fully reintegrated into society? Thank you.
And captured it. I think maybe we can do one more comment before we need to get to the polling. I'm just being mindful of the time. Would that work?
Yes.
Tom, go ahead.
I think your rights under fair housing is a very important topic. A lot of people are not aware of the protections they have.
So, okay, so the financial literacy and, I'm sorry, say that again. I want to make sure I capture your point correctly.
Your rights under the fair housing laws.
Got it.
Regulations.
Got it. I think we should turn to voting now. We now have, I think, 30 items. There will be overlap. And again, this is just the beginning of the conversation, but I think, I'm sorry, I just screwed this up. I think it'd be great to sort of think about, if we had to sort of step back for a couple of minutes and think about our top 3, it would be great to sort of do that now. Michelle, while I just fixed the numbering, would you mind just letting folks know how to do the polling?
Yes. So what we are going to do is we're really looking at things where we should focus as a community. We want to, quote unquote, take action. There are short-term opportunities and there are long-term opportunities. What we would like to do today is harness the power of over 180 people on the phone who care about a number of issues we are going to put up a poll. You are going to click on the number associated with the item that you would like to see community-based action against. I want to be clear, this is not United Way's action in a vacuum. This is community-based action, which we will enlist the help of the voices that are on this phone as well as others. So the items are currently numbered 1 to 29. And from 1 to 29, we want you to look at your screen and identify where you want to place your 3 votes. We want you to vote for your top 3. Unfortunately, the polling tool does not allow us to put all 29 on the screen at the same time. It only allows us to put 9 at a time. So if you are not interested in item 1 to 9, do not vote, because we will then put up item 10 through 17. I'm making up the numbers. I don't know how somebody in the background is doing it right now as we speak. So remember the number next to the item that you want to vote on for more immediate action. There are some of these that are structural and will take years. So this is about a call to act now. So think about that immediate thing that we want to do. Vote on it. You have 3 votes. So vote on your top 3, and then we're going to try to tally them and let you know kind of what the majority has identified as the top 3 items to work on. It does not mean that we will not get to the other ones. It does not mean that all of your comments are not being taken into consideration. We just really want to make sure that not only that we bring people together to clear the path, but that we also identify what the community is telling us. And that is the basis of what United Way does. What is the community telling us is important, and we want to act on it. So the poll is going to happen by number. Please, please, please look at your screen, 1 to 29, and place your vote. So the first 9 items are up on the screen. And they are now viewing questions. That's interesting, because I don't see the opportunity to vote, Antoinette.
I think you just, if you want 1 through 9, you just click on 1 and 6 if you want, and then hit submit.
Oh, you just click on, okay, thank you very much.
The option. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so everybody, you have 10 seconds if 1 through 9 is your idea. And now we're going to put a 10 through 19, right? So if your top 3 fall in 10 through 19, that's going to go up in a second.
I just want to make sure that I'm seeing this right. I can't vote, but I can see what's going on.
I can vote. Maybe.
That's interesting. You have a...
Michelle, I think it's because I made you a co-host.
Okay, thank you.
So you're looking at the results coming in.
Yes, I am. Okay, thank you.
I also like to remind people that the numbers don't coordinate with what's on the screen. So please read what's beside the answer to make sure you're voting correctly. Somebody said they can't see their number. Just make sure you look for the answer typed out.
Oh, so the number,
area, yeah.
Oh, so we got a little disconnected.
Yeah, I see what happened.
Okay, now let's look at the next set of ideas, 20 through 29. I think this is our last poll. Okay, we have one more after this, right? Or do we get all the way through? Yeah, we get all the way through.
Did we? Yeah, we got all the way through.
Yeah. All right, let's close the polls. Is there any way, folks that are running the polling, that you could let us know what the top 3 ideas are?
So I am seeing in the chat room, let's just make sure.
Can we go back again through all the polls just so people can have clarity? Some people were confused on where to
Oh,
go.
because we thought the numbers were going to be, okay. So do we want to?
I can start again from the first one.
Again, so if you see your item, read through the items. If you see, because the numbers don't match, unfortunately, if you see your item, just check on it and hit submit, and we'll do that for.
You can do
we'll do that.
No, unless it says we need radio dials in order to vote for more than one option.
Oh, she's on the phone, probably.
Okay, now let's go through ideas 10 through 19. We're all going to be experts at Zooming soon. Ideas 10 through 19. Is that coming up soon? Great. So take a look and see if it's there for you. All right, and let's take the last set of ideas, 20 through 29. Okay. All right, Antoinette, can we see what's, 20 through 29 or 19 through 29?
Rosa, she's probably going to need just a few minutes.
No problem. I'll be
separate polls. Yeah.
So I'll just pause for a little bit, and whenever you guys are ready, just let us know.
Okay, based off of the polling options, for the number 1, eliminate food deserts in Guilford County. That was one of the top 3. The second top option was community violence prevention, police training, domestic violence.
Which number was that on our sheet? Community violence prevention. Oh, got it.
Number 3.
Got it. Yep, number 3.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And then
And what was the third?
number 3 is foundational bias, racial training, street law, know your rights, cultural sensitivity.
Okay. So I am going to copy and paste that over here. So our original intent, which was to actually spend some time on each of these 3, talking about, what are the specific things that we could, maybe we can do that for a couple of minutes, but what are the specific things that we could do against these 3 areas starting tomorrow? Eliminating the food deserts in Guilford County, addressing community violence prevention, police violence training, domestic violence, and driving that cultural shift and providing that foundational training. We only have 12 minutes left in the call. Michelle, I'm assuming that you want to end it right at the top of the hour.
Yeah, and one of the things, so we're getting a lot of feedback that let's verify what we have today by sending out a Survey Monkey to everyone that is on the call today. So what we're going to do is use what we have here today as directional. And let's kind of peel back the onion just a little bit on what the approach is going to be and what the actual focus area is going to be. We'll just verify it through a secondary polling tool.
Mm-hmm.
So that we can just make sure. I don't actually think we're going to be that far off, but we'll make sure.
So what I was going to suggest this process going forward, if this makes sense to everybody on the phone, is if you could let me know at Rosa Sabater at our Sabater at martellusgroup.com by 5 p.m. today. If you actually want to add something to the page we have in front of you, to the 29 items, because maybe there's one that you leave the call and say, boy, we really should have added this one. Please let me know that by 5 p.m. Then what we will do is we will send out a Survey Monkey with all of the items, including the new items that you guys as a community may have added, so that you guys can vote in advance of Monday. And the hope is to send out a summary page of all the issues raised, as well as the Survey Monkey results by end of day Monday. So that would be one piece of next step that I would ask you to do. The other thing that I would ask you to do is, we identified 3 areas: the food deserts, the violence prevention, and the foundational training to drive culture shift. If you could actually either take a second to think about these 3 areas, and in addition to giving some feedback on areas we may have missed, think about what is one thing, just one thing that we could do as a community tomorrow against each of these 3 things as we identified as top priorities right now. Just one thing we could do to eliminate food deserts that we could actually do as a community tomorrow, not just United Way as a community, one thing in terms of violence prevention. It would be great if you could email those to me as well, because I'd like to start, Michelle, building a plan of what are the specific actions that we could take, even as we refine what the focus areas are. Do those make sense as next steps? Michelle, any comment on those? And
Yeah, no, it does make sense. And I think structurally, when you want to make change, you really do think about, and you hear the voices of as many people as possible to just say, what is the next thing or the one thing that we can do toward that end? And again, none of this is going to be dismantled by 5 o'clock today, but we will have a clear action path that other groups who are not on this phone today can join us in this work. So again, this was about clearing the path. This was about getting some concrete action that more than almost 200 people have agreed to, and then moving from there.
Yep. So I've captured those things, Michelle, those specific next steps in the notes below.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the beginning of the conversation, huh? Not the end.
Yeah. And we see that people are in the chat room putting some of theirs up there. Can you give us your email again? Yes, it's on the screen right now. And for those that are on the phone and may not be able to see, it's our Sabater, SABATER at Martellus, MARTELLUS group, GROUP.com. Our Sabater at martellusgroup.com. And the email is in the chat room.
To see everybody adding to the chat.
So my team is saying that they are going to follow up with you with everyone on the call with a Survey Monkey. We have all of your email addresses because you had to give us one in order to get into this call. Now you know the method to our madness.
Michelle, do you want to close the call?
Yes. And so what I want to say is I really want to thank everybody. Some of the comments are extraordinary in the chat room. I thank you for lifting your voice. I thank you for lifting your energy to come to this conversation. The reality is when we feel tension as people, it is our human desire actually to join together with others. And it's not necessarily that you agree with other people, but it is to be together because that is our humanity. So I thank you for your humanity and exercising it today by joining together with other members of your community. I also thank you for your humanity that actually caused you to lift your voice, whether it's through polling, through chat room, etc. So what we're going to be doing next is we're going to call on you to join this body of work. As we identify this, we will blast it through social media. We ask you to blast it. If you have any comments or feedback, let us know. We want you to take this work to your subgroups also. So this is not just for us, it is for the whole community. And with that, I thank you. I ask that blessings always follow you and your family. And most of all, I just ask you to believe in a greater future for our community because it is possible if we decide it's possible. So with that, I ask you to please have a safe and enjoyable weekend, and we look forward to being in touch with you. Have a fabulous day. And again, thank you. The call is a community conversation is only just beginning, but this Zoom call is over. Thank you.